So here's the question. What do you do when the fish have been offshore? You get a ton of rain in the spring, the water was clear, and now it's dirty. The answer to that's real simple. Pick up a spinnerbait or vibrating jig and go shallow, and you'll start to catch good fish, because that's where they go. Hey guys, thanks again for coming to the channel. You know, we're getting out of winter now and starting to go into early spring. And with early spring comes something that we all have to deal with, and that's spring rain. And spring rain, you know, if it's light, it's not too bad. But a lot of times we get heavy spring rains. We've had heavy spring rains around here where I live. And the water gets dirty, and gets dirty quick, and it will start running also even harder, especially if you're in a river type situation. So how do you adjust to dirty water, muddy water in the spring? What are the best lures? I'm gonna show you 4 lures that I would throw in muddy water situations in the spring. I want to talk about what you can expect, you know, because all mud is not created equal. And, you know, sometimes timing is a lot too. So let's get right into it. So recently we've had, you know, a lot of rain. You know, we're 4 to 5 inches above normal for the year in the area that I live in right now. And I do fish a lot of tidal rivers, but also fish some small lakes locally, not counting what I fish around. And everything's muddy right now. Now, everything has been clear. You know, the lakes have been clear, the rivers have been clear, you know, relatively clear for what they will be in the summertime. They're all going to get a lot of algae bloom and get a lot dirtier, not muddy, but dirtier. So right now they're very tannic, very muddy, a lot of suspended solids and everything. And you know, in the wintertime, clear water expands your options of what you can do, but for the most part, the fish are generally going to be off a little bit deeper around drop-offs, stumps off the shore, channel bends, bluff ends if you have bluffs in your lakes, things like that, you know, isolated, submerged timber, and all that type of thing. But what happens here when it gets muddy is, while some of those fish will stay in those areas, those fish become uncatchable. You know, they become uncatchable for, you know, 2 or at least 3 days. And then even after 3 days, you have to change your tactics a little bit to catch them. So what do you do when you show up to the lake? It's been raining. It's still spring, cool, you know, water temperatures in the low 50s, mid 50s, or even maybe a little bit warmer than that. You've been catching them off the bank all winter long. And should you even go out there and try that? Well, you can try it, but I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. If you show up to the lake and it's muddy and it's been clear, those off the bank fish just plain won't bite. They'll go into neutral mode. And so you have to change your tactics, and your tactics are go to the bank. You know, even if it's not even a bank type place, you know, where you fish, you know, the fish just generally aren't on the bank, go to the bank, because any fish that wants to eat when that water turns muddy is going to go up and get up close to something that he can relate to, a stump, a log, a branch hanging in the water, a dock piling, a big rock, and he's going to get real close and real tight to that, because that keeps him oriented in the muddy water, which has disoriented him where they've been living in clear water all winter long. So your best chance of catching fish once the muddy water comes in is to go shallow. I'm talking about 5 feet or less. And you're still not going to probably whack them, but you give yourself an opportunity to catch some fish at least when you show up, instead of catching nothing by fishing offshore a lot of times in those situations. So understanding that, when you go to the bank, you know, I got 4 different lures that I'm going to approach them with generally. And these 4 lures are this. I'm going to throw a jig. And in muddy water situations, it's always going to be black, black and blue, black and chartreuse. Every time. There's just no need to throw anything else, because that dark silhouette gives those fish something that they can key on. And you want a bulky jig. You don't want a little finesse jig now that the water's muddy. You want a bulky. This is a 1/2 ounce structure jig. Got a super chunk on the back of it. And I'll throw that, you know, if the sun's out, I'm going to throw that electric blue in the mud. If the sun's not out, I'm probably going to throw black and chartreuse on the back. And I'm going to throw that for bigger fish, tight to cover. You're going to have to leave it there a lot of times. You're going to have to get it over something and bounce it up and down to get the fish to respond to it, because they're not going to be super aggressive. Then I'm going to throw a spinnerbait. And in muddy water situations, it's always going to be white, chartreuse and white, chartreuse, white, and blue. And if it's really dirty, I like to throw an orange, red, or chartreuse kicker blade. And I usually like a thumper blade. Remember, we're fishing 5 feet or less, so we're not necessarily getting down deep. This is a War Eagle. This is a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait. You know, if the water's a little warmer, you may even go up to a 5/8 or 3/4 ounce spinnerbait so you can move it quick in that first 5 feet of the water column. As far as trailers go, I want probably something bulky and thumpy. Now, the next lure that I'm going to throw in a muddy situation is a vibrating jig. Again, that vibrating jig is going to be just like the spinnerbait. It's going to be white or chartreuse and white, and I'm usually going to throw some type of white trailer on it. I'm going to probably change to a thumpy type tail instead of a straight type tail like a blade minnow or the straight Zaco or so many of these other straight tail baits that you would throw on here now. A lot of people are now throwing the freeloader on the back of chatterbaits, vibrating jigs. And again, I want something reasonably heavy, something that's going to get down and stay down. Obviously, you're not going to want to throw this if you're around a lot of snags. You're going to stick with probably the spinnerbait. If you're not around as many snags, you know, the chatterbait vibrating jig is going to work really good for you. Probably catch your best grade of fish. And then the final lure that I'm going to throw in muddy situations is a square bill. Now, I'm going to throw 2 colors. I'm just not going to throw any other colors. I'm going to throw some type of chartreuse, black back, chartreuse, stripe, any type of chartreuse combination, or I'm going to throw some type of red combination, red and orange, red and chartreuse. These are Lucky Craft 1.5s, natural crawl and chartreuse blackback. And they both work good in muddy situations when those fish move to the bank. So now you're equipped with these type of lures. You want to go to places that are the most stable in your lake. A lot of times, you know, you want to get in the sides of pockets. If you got clear water run-ins in the back of your pockets, that's the place you're going to want to be, where the water's starting to clear. Those fish will use those clear water edges or clearer water edges and get away from that mud. But generally, you know, the first day it gets muddy, you know, you're going to be a 10 out of 10 on difficulty level on catching fish. The second day it's muddy, you know, the fish are going to maybe start to adjust just a little bit. The third day it's muddy, you can usually start catching, you know, some fish, not a lot of fish. Once you get to about day 4 of muddy, if it's not even clearing out yet, see, if it's clearing out, you know, every day that it clears out more and more, the fish activity is going to get better and better. But on like day 4, you know, of muddy, by the 4th day, what I have found over the years is these fish adjust to it. And you can catch them in some chocolate milk after about the 4th day, you know, unless the water is really cold. If the water is really cold, I'm talking about really cold, I'm talking about below 50 degrees. If the water's below 50 degrees and muddy, man, it's just going to be a grind, a struggle. The best thing for you to do is try to find some clear water somewhere. So there are the lures that I use, the strategies I would use to catch them with, get around cover, tight cover, be very efficient or accurate in your cast, Let it sit there as long as you can. Repeated casts over and over again. If you're throwing one of the moving baits, move those baits as slow as possible. Not quick. You're not going to get, you're not going to catch too many if you move it quick. You're going to have to move it as slow as possible. So take these strategies that I'm giving you and these 4 lures that we're talking about. Understand the muddy water situation, how it's going to get better if it's clearing by the 4th day or so. They're probably going to bite anyhow, but they still are going to be shallow. Those deep water fish, even though you may even be able to see them, with your live sight, your forward facing sonar, those deep water fish rarely ever bite out there in the deep water. And I'll even give you another example here. I've even go out fishing when it's muddy, and the bank fishermen that are throwing live bait complain that they can't even catch the catfish and the perch, the first couple of days of muddy water. So it's something happens to those fish, and the few exclusive fish that will move shallow, they're the ones that you can catch. So thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.